It's Pride Month. So if you're homophobic or transphobic or don't fuck with pride, you can fuck off. Hi, I'm Samin Marco. I make videos about marine animals, and today we are going to discuss 5 fish that are LGBTQ+. There's so many examples, but these were the 5 I found most interesting, so happy Pride. First fish we're going to look at is known as the barred spinefish or scribbled rabbitfish, and I'm now realizing that this video is gonna suck for me because I have to do all these scientific names. So the scribbled rabbitfish is scientifically known as Siganus doliatus. These are really small fish that get about 3 inches long, and they live in the Western Pacific around Oceania. They inhabit reefs, especially the seaward side, and they can also be found in lagoons or just general areas where there's coral. And they range from depth from 2 to 15 meters. They're also herbivorous, and they eat algae off of the coral and rocks. They live and feed in pairs and are considered monogamous, which is really cute. And it's been observed that about 25% of these pairs are homosexual. And its pairing is considered primarily a sexual behavior. So it's surprising that homosexual pairs, which don't lead to reproduction, would end up being a viable strategy and be so prevalent. However, this doesn't take into account that pairing also helps with their survival in other ways, in that it allows them to look out for predators. And so a lot of times one fish will be like digging in a nook or cranny, and the other fish will be like looking out for predators, and it lets them not get predated as much. And they spend about 80% of their time like together, and then the rest of the time, they're almost always in sight of each other, like they're never that far. And that's our first fish. Moving on to our second fish. So the next 2 creatures I'm going to be covering are hermaphrodites. That term in a scientific context describes a sexually reproducing creature that produces both male and female gametes. It's not appropriate to use around people as it is derogatory. Now, the second creature I'm going to cover, you've probably eaten. Chinook salmon, also known as king salmon, are the ones we're covering right now. Scientifically known as Oncorhynchus tishawachisha. It's on the screen, you got it. So, Chinook salmon tend to be fixed in their sex. They're not sequential hermaphrodites, which is when, over the course of their life, their sex changes. That's not to say their lives aren't interesting. They have quite the far range from Ventura River to Kotzebue Sound, I think that's how you say it, which is a very wide range. They hatch in rivers, then go live in the ocean, and then return to the rivers to spawn, which is quite an interesting migration. You probably know about it if you know anything about salmon. When they come back to the rivers to spawn, the males develop a kype, which is like a hook jaw, and then they also develop like these teeth that look like canines. What we're talking about today is synchronous hermaphroditism. Hermaphroditism. Anyway, the individuals documented in the article, hermaphroditism observed in captive fall Chinook salmon, broodstock, and it was written by Michael E. Barnes in the North American Journal of Aquaculture. In the article, salmon was observed having female sex characteristics, but was releasing milk, which is like salmon sperm kinda. And upon dissection, it was found that the fish had both female ovaries and male testicular tissue. And because this is so rarely observed in Chinook salmon and we have such a big sample size, it's assumed that this is a genetic abnormality. This is your reminder to subscribe so you can learn more about marine creatures. 2 videos a week minimum. I'm committed to it for the summer. That's like, and once I'm in school, it'll probably be more like 1 video every 2 weeks, 1 video a week, somewhere there. You might already know this, but if Finding Nemo happened in real life, Marlin would have turned into Nemo's mom. I'm being so dead ass right now. That's because the common clownfish is known to be a hermaphrodite. Now, before I explain, let's give you the scientific name. It is Amphitryon ocellaris, and then let me give you some basic information too. So the common clownfish are tiny little dudes. They get to about 4.3 inches, and they live in multiple species of sea anemones. And they are dependent on these sea anemones for shelter and reproduction. They don't get stung by the sea anemones due to the mucus they produce, and they feed on plankton and algae, which makes them omnivores. They are all born male. Which may confuse you because like, how do they reproduce then? And the answer is, remember that term protandrous hermaphrodites? That means that during their life cycle, males will become females. They have a sex change, and it's built into their social hierarchy. So in clownfish social hierarchies, there are a dominant mating pair, and they're monogamous, and then all the other fish in the social hierarchy are non-breeding. And so if the female in that mating pair dies or is removed, the male becomes the female, and then the second largest fish becomes the dominant male, and the male changes sex to become the female. And some of you might be a little upset at me for these last two because they're both whales. But this is your reminder that whales are technically fish. It's because mammals are fish, because like tetrapods and like taxonomy just fucking sucks. Doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Dinosaurs are fish too. But since whales are fish, technically the video isn't clickbait, so you still have to like it, you still have to hype it. I'll never clickbait you, probably. Don't hold me to that. Okay, so our fourth animal is narwhals. And this article titled Same-Sex Socio-Sexual Interactions Among Male Narwhal by Maha Ghazal discusses how narwhals have been observed practicing homosexual sex as captured on a DJI drone, which is my favorite camera company. And if you want to sponsor me, please, 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 I need new cameras. And it's also like a little creepy from the scientists, but I get it. You got to do it for the science. Anyway, narwhals are really cool and real. I do remember one time when I was like 12, I had to search it up because I was just like, I have to be imagining these things. These things can't be real. But they are, and they live in the Arctic. Their tusks can reach 10 feet long, and then their bodies can reach 18 feet long. In general, only the males have tusks, although like 2 out of 100 females or so do have tusks. And the study does detail different types of homosexual behavior that was captured by the drone, but probably the most interesting was this one pair that was mutually rubbing genitals while erect. The study does include many reasons, both sexual and sociosexual, for this behavior. These range from like dominance assertions to sexual practice, basically, all the way to just like play or like because it feels good. However, they don't actually make any strong conclusions because the way they took this footage is they just like were like, oh shoot, there's some narwhals over there, let's go record them with our drone. And because of that, they don't have enough context to confidently be making an assertion, which like it does kind of suck, but it does make sense. And it's important that as scientists, we don't, jump to conclusions, and we make sure that we have proper evidence before we make conclusions. And like we say sometimes that we just don't know a lot of the time. I forgot to say the narwhal's scientific name, so we're doing it now. Monodon monoceros. So our final fish is a gray whale. We already talked about this. You can't fry me in the comments. Homosexual behavior in gray whales has been observed. Gray whales are scientifically known as Escherichthys robustus and are one of my favorite types of whales. Gray whales can be found on the west coast of North America and the east coast of Asia. They get up to 50 feet long. They lack a dorsal fin, and they have these vibrissae, which kind of act like whiskers. Overall, really cool. They will definitely be getting a video at some point on the channel, so subscribe if you want to see that. And the documentation of gray whale homosexuality has been somewhat frequent, but it's really only been in male gray whales. Now, this could be for multiple reasons. One of them could just be that it's kind of harder to see homosexual behavior when the reproductive organs aren't so obvious. It's been observed between females in other whale species, I think humpback specifically, but then it also is probably, like just most likely, due to misogyny, just from researchers, where they're more interested in male sexual behavior than female sexual behavior. The good news is that this has been acknowledged by some researchers, and then, with drone technology, it's kind of just getting easier and easier for us to monitor and observe these events, as we saw with the narwhals. Gray whales do a lot of other cute stuff, like they've been documented holding hands. Is that a sexual behavior? Is that just play? It's not really clear, but males have been observed at the surface engaging in, at the very least, socio-sexual behavior. But my friends, we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for making it with me. This was a new kind of video, so if you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, all the beautiful things. If you're on mobile, hype it. All of that, make sure YouTube knows that you want more animals and marine creatures on your feed and less AI slop and garbage. And then on screen right now is the playlist of digital bestiaries. It's a series I've worked really hard on, and it covers some creatures that I think could use more of a spotlight. I'm gonna go to the ocean. I wish. I have a few more days before I go to the ocean again.